I was lying in a hospital bed with wires coming out of my chest when I got the call. "Michael? It's Terry next door. I hate to bother you, man, but are you moving? There's a couple trucks outside, and some guys are hauling out what looks like your dining set." My grip on the phone tightened. The beeping on my monitor sped up. "I'm sorry, what trucks?" "The big kind. U-Haul. They've been parked here half an hour. Your wife's out front directing them." The world narrowed into a pinpoint of sound. I pressed the call button. A nurse rushed in, but I was already struggling to sit up, ignoring the searing pain that ripped through my chest. "Sir, you just had surgery," she said firmly. "You cannot move like that. I need a phone. A real phone. Now." She hesitated, then handed me the hospital landline. I called Vanessa. She answered on the third ring, voice calm, even casual. "Michael, I was going to tell you." "Tell me what?" My voice was hoarse from the intubation days before. "That I sold the house." I stared at the wall. "The house? Our house? The one I designed brick by brick, from the foundation to the skylight above our bedroom? You sold our home? I didn't think you'd be in any position to handle logistics right now. Besides, I've been planning this for a while. The timing just worked out." The timing. She meant my heart surgery. The moment I was most vulnerable. She chose then. "Where are you going?" I asked. "California. With Ryan. He teaches yoga in Santa Cruz. It's a fresh start for both of us." I closed my eyes. My chest wasn't the only thing that hurt now. "The house sold for $450,000, she added. "I've already transferred the funds to my account. Don't worry, your name's still on everything for now. But that won't matter once the paperwork clears." My breath caught. "You transferred the funds?" I needed to act fast. Things are moving. Things were moving, all right. Out of my life, one piece at a time. When she hung up, I sat motionless. The nurse came back, checked my vitals. "Do you want me to call someone?" I shook my head. I had no one left to call. But then I remembered something. Behind our bedroom closet, beneath the cedar paneling I had installed myself, was a small, reinforced safe. I put it there 12 years ago, back when I still believed in locking up the things that mattered. Inside were our original property documents. Titles, contracts, a notarized agreement that, by Massachusetts law, made any sale invalid without dual signatures, hers and mine. And not just that. The safe also held documents Vanessa didn't even know existed, proof of a separate savings account I had been quietly feeding for over a decade. Every bonus. Every consulting job. Over 800. 0. And none of it was in her name. She thought she had won. She thought the surgery had taken me out of the game. But she'd forgotten who built that house, who hid its secrets in the walls. And that's when something inside me clicked. Not panic. Not despair. Resolve. She could sell the furniture, take the car, even empty the joint account. But the house? That was mine, in every sense of the word. And I was going to make sure she paid for forgetting that. I met Vanessa 15 years ago at a gallery opening in Beacon Hill. She was elegant in that polished way Boston women carry themselves, every strand of hair deliberate, every smile calculated. I was younger then, still in the messy stages of my architecture career, barely sleeping between drafts, pulling espresso shots at a cafe to cover rent. But she liked the ambition in me, or maybe just the way I spoke about buildings like they were living things. We got married 2 years later. I designed our home as a wedding gift to quiet, modern structure nestled just outside the city, with long cedar beams and glass walls that caught the morning sun like it had been choreographed. Vanessa said it was the first place that ever felt like hers. I believed her. Over time, the house became our life's canvas. We painted rooms together, argued about furniture, buried a time capsule in the backyard with our daughter's baby shoes and a note that said, "Forever, no matter what." But forever had an expiration date. The changes didn't come all at once. At first, it was subtle. Longer yoga retreats, phone calls she'd step into the hallway to take, passwords changed without explanation. She grew colder, but always just warm enough to avoid confrontation. I chalked it up to stress. Her job at the nonprofit, the way motherhood thins out time like smoke. Then came the diagnosis. My heart had been skipping beats for months, but I ignored it until one morning I collapsed on a job site. At the hospital, they found a rare congenital defect. The surgery had to happen immediately. Vanessa didn't cry. She didn't hold my hand like the spouses I'd seen in the waiting room. She stood next to me in silence while the surgeon explained the risks, then excused herself to take a call. 3 days later, I was unconscious in recovery, and she was packing up our life. I didn't know it yet, but she'd already contacted a realtor weeks before the surgery, listed the house behind my back, forged my preliminary consent by digitally attaching a scanned signature I'd used for zoning permits. She was efficient, methodical, and she was gone. I only found out how far she'd gone when I had my lawyer freeze our accounts. Vanessa called me the next morning, livid. "You're being spiteful," she said, voice like ice. "You can't stop the sale." "I already have." "You're recovering from surgery, Michael. You're not thinking clearly." I was thinking more clearly than I had in years. "Did you check the wall behind the closet?" I asked. Silence. "What are you talking about?" "You'll find out. Eventually." That night, I lay in the hospital bed and stared at the ceiling. The beeping of the monitors steadied like a metronome as my mind raced ahead. She thought this was over, that she'd walked away with everything. But the house was still legally mine. Without my signature on the full transfer, the sale wasn't binding. And if the buyer's attorney caught wind of that, the deal would unravel fast, especially once they learned the funds were already moved offshore. I still had leverage, and she'd just handed me the match. Vanessa had betrayed me at the weakest moment of my life. But in doing so, she'd forgotten one thing. You don't try to steal a home from the man who built it. Not unless you're ready to watch it burn. The call came 2 days later. Not from Vanessa, but from the moving company. A manager named Alonzo. Nervous voice. Apologetic tone. "Sir, I'm not sure if I should be calling you, but something happened during the job at your property. One of our crew accidentally damaged a wall in the upstairs bedroom, behind the closet." I sat up straighter. My chest still ached, but adrenaline muted the pain. "What did they find?" "A small metal safe embedded in the wall. Looked custom. We weren't told anything about it. The lady on site, the seller, she freaked out when she saw it." My pulse ticked upward. "She tried to tell us it was nothing, but then she called someone. I overheard her say your name. I figured I should let you know." I thanked him. Hung up. Not 10 minutes later, Vanessa called. I let it ring. The voicemail transcribed automatically. "Michael II didn't know about the safe. What is this? Why didn't you tell me? Call me back." I didn't. Instead, I called my attorney Claire. Sharp, efficient, Harvard law. The kind of person who reads contracts like most people read menus. "Did you file the injunction?" I asked. "Yes," she replied. "The temporary freeze on the real estate transfer is in place. The buyer's lawyer is already panicking. They assumed your signature was handled. It wasn't. That's the problem. Without it, the deal is legally incomplete, and transferring funds from the transaction could be seen as fraud." I let out a slow breath. "Vanessa's in trouble," Claire added, voice dry, "and she doesn't even know how much yet." Later that evening, Vanessa texted again. "We need to talk. Please, just call me for 5 minutes." I didn't mean for it to go this far. She'd sold the home I designed, emptied our accounts, and left me alone in a hospital bed. Not out of necessity, out of convenience. Because my crisis was her opportunity. I stared at the ceiling, remembering the night I finished building the house. I had stood alone in the living room, lights dim, floors gleaming. I'd carved our initials into one of the beams, MGA1 V. I never told her about it, just a quiet promise to a future I believed in. And she sold it for cash and a plane ticket to California. I opened my private laptop Vanessa never had access to and logged into the offshore account tied to the documentation in the safe. The balance blinked back at me. 823,441.17. Every bonus, every side project, Every overtime design job I took over the past decade funneled quietly into an account under my name only. I'd started it after Vanessa took out a secret credit card without telling me. I didn't confront her then. I just learned, adjusted, prepared. Now that account was the one thing she hadn't touched, couldn't touch. And it was about to become the key to everything. I drafted a memo to Claire authorizing her to use the account to fund any litigation necessary, public or private. I also gave her permission to contact the buyer's legal team directly. They won't want a scandal, I said, especially not one tied to wire fraud and forgery. She smiled through the phone. This is going to be interesting. When I hung up, my phone buzzed again. Vanessa. Michael, please. We need to work something out. I didn't mean to hurt you, but if this goes to court, I could lose everything. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed 3 words. You already did. I didn't sleep that night. Not from pain, though. The tightness in my chest came and went like waves, but from the clarity that had settled over everything. Sharp, cold, final. There was no version of this where I came out unscathed, but there was a version where she didn't walk away clean. The next morning, I met with Claire in person. She brought coffee and a folder filled with timelines, court filings, and a draft letter addressed to the Massachusetts Real Estate Board. She forged preliminary disclosures, Claire said. Technically, they were only listing agreements, but the buyer's team moved forward without the final closing signature, yours. And that makes it invalid. Not just invalid. Her voice was calm. It opens Vanessa up to civil liability for misrepresentation, especially since she already touched the funds. She moved them the day I went under. Claire looked up, eyes narrowing. That's useful. She tapped her pen twice. We also found something else. The realtor she used. Her name is Gabrielle Price. She's Ryan's sister. I blinked. Wait, the yoga guy? Claire smirked. They kept it clean on paper. No direct commission shared. But emails between them show Gabrielle offering to fast-track the deal to get Vanessa out before the husband recovers. Her words, not mine. My jaw clenched. They were planning this before I even collapsed. Claire didn't answer. She didn't need to. I stared out the window at the courthouse across the street. It was quiet, sterile. But all I could see was my house, my studio, the oak table I built by hand, gone in boxes while I was unconscious. How much damage can we do? I asked. Enough. That afternoon, I had her send a formal notice of civil action to Gabrielle Price and her agency, citing conflict of interest, forged documentation, and fraud under Real Estate Statute 93A. Then we filed a motion to seize the proceeds from the home sale, still sitting in Vanessa's account. By 4 p.m., her bank had frozen $412, zero of the total transfer. Not all of it. She'd moved some fast, but enough to make her squirm. At 6:27 p.m., my phone rang. It was Vanessa. I answered this time. Michael. Her voice cracked. What are you doing? What I should have done the moment I saw the moving trucks. Her breath hitched. You're trying to ruin me. I'm not trying. I'm just making sure you don't ruin me and get away with it. I didn't know the safe was there. I didn't know about the documents. No, you didn't. Because you never built that house. You just lived in it. Silence. I was scared, she said finally quietly. You were in the hospital. I thought maybe you wouldn't make it. You didn't wait to find out. Another pause. Can we fix this? She asked, her voice softening. I almost laughed. This isn't a crack in the wall, Vanessa. You don't patch betrayal with an apology. You're being cruel. No, you were cruel. I'm being precise. She didn't reply after that, just the sound of her breathing, then a click as she ended the call. I sat back, staring at the ceiling of the rehab facility, heart thudding not from weakness now, but from something steadier, stronger. I was done bleeding for people who sharpened their knives while I slept. She'd sold the house, but I was about to foreclose on her entire new life. The next phase started with an invitation. A carefully worded email from me to Vanessa. Polite, professional, cold. Vanessa, given the legal and financial complications arising from your actions during my hospitalization, I believe a mediated conversation would benefit both parties. My attorney is prepared to negotiate terms assuming full transparency and cooperation on your part. If you're interested in avoiding public litigation, I suggest we speak soon. Michael, she replied within an hour. Yes, please. Let's meet. Just us. No lawyers. I didn't mean for it to go this far. That was the trap. I suggested a quiet cafe near the public garden open air, neutral ground, one Vanessa liked for its tea selection. She showed up in yoga pants, sunglasses, and the same faux compassionate look she wore during arguments she pretended not to enjoy winning. She sat down across from me. You look stronger, she said. I am. There was a beat of silence, then she sighed. Michael, I made a mistake. I panicked. You were in surgery, and I'd been unhappy for years. I saw a chance to leave clean. Ryan and I? Don't talk to me about Ryan. She closed her mouth. I pulled out a manila folder and placed it on the table between us, her name printed across the front. What's that? Your blueprint, I said. The one you tried to build without permits. I opened it, revealing a stack of documents copies of the fake listing authorization, the altered digital signature on the transaction form, bank logs showing fund transfers tied to forged timelines. At the top, a transcript from a recorded call with Gabrielle Price. Her face paled. You recorded me? No, I said calmly. Your realtor's agency did. Standard protocol. Unfortunately for you, Gabrielle was sloppy with her words. Vanessa reached for the folder, but I stopped her. Not yet. You can have a copy later. Right now, I'm here to offer you one chance. What kind of chance? I slid another paper forward, drafted confession. 1 page. Short. Bullet pointed. You'll sign this, admitting to unauthorized sale of jointly owned property. You'll return what's left of the $450. 0. And you'll relinquish any claim to my personal savings, assets, or the home. I already sold the house. No, you listed it. But the sale's now under investigation. The buyer's lawyer knows the paperwork was faulty. The escrow company has been notified. And I filed for a full annulment of the transaction. You can't do that. I tilted my head. I already have. She sat there frozen, calculating. I could see it in her eyes running through outcomes, damage control, her legal exposure, but she wasn't used to playing defense. You think this makes you the hero? She hissed. You're dragging both of us through the mud. No, I said. I'm cleaning up what you left behind. She stared down at the paper, hands trembling slightly. Then, slowly, she reached for the pen. What happens if I sign? You walk away. No criminal charges, no press. You get your yoga boyfriend and a one-way ticket to Santa Cruz, but no cash, no home, and no leverage ever again. Her jaw clenched. And if I don't? I leaned forward. Then this goes to court. Fraud, forgery, civil damages, maybe even criminal. And I'll make sure every employer, bank, and realtor in California sees the transcript of you conspiring to sell a home while your husband was unconscious. Vanessa stared at me, lips parted, breath shallow. Then she signed. I took the page, slid a copy from the folder, and handed it to her. As she stood up to leave, I said, There's one more thing. She paused. You forgot to check the beam above our bed. The initials. She blinked. Mijiawan V? She whispered. I nodded. It was never just wood and nails, Vanessa. It was a life. Mine. Ours. And you tried to sell it like it was furniture. She didn't say anything, just walked away, shoulders stiff, sunglasses hiding nothing anymore. I stayed at the cafe long after she left, watching the light shift on the pavement. She'd signed her confession. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. 2 weeks later, I watched from across the street as a for sale sign was quietly removed from my front yard. The deal had collapsed completely. The buyer once eager, now enraged filed a grievance with the state board after discovering Vanessa had forged key documents and failed to disclose joint ownership. The title company disavowed the transaction, and the escrow firm, terrified of liability, froze everything. The house was mine again. Legally, permanently. I walked back through the front door on a Tuesday afternoon alone. No more moving trucks. No more lies echoing through empty halls. Just silence and the creak of my own footsteps on hardwood floors I'd laid myself, one slat at a time. The bedroom still smelled faintly like her, lavender oil and entitlement, but the closet wall had been patched over, the safe resealed. I ran my fingers along the paint line. You wouldn't even know anything had ever happened. But I knew. I had the confession letter in a lockbox now, and the audio recording of Vanessa agreeing in her own voice that she'd accessed and sold jointly owned assets without consent. She tried to redact it later through a lawyer, but it was too late. Claire had already submitted it as evidence in the civil case, and we didn't stop there. We hit her hard. Her realtor licensee suspended indefinitely for professional misconduct via association with her sister Gabrielle. The state board ruled that Vanessa, as a seller, had engaged in deliberate misrepresentation. The term used in the filing? Malicious deception of a vulnerable spouse during medical incapacitation. Claire called it poetic. I called it accurate. She also lost her California apartment. Turns out she'd used a portion of the frozen house funds to place a down payment. When the bank reversed the transfer, she defaulted. Ryan, the yoga instructor, ghosted her a week later. Apparently, he wasn't interested in a woman under investigation for real estate fraud. Vanessa tried calling me one last time. I didn't answer, but I did listen to the voicemail. Michael, I don't know who you've become. You were never like this before. You were kind, gentle. You would have never destroyed someone like this. I barely recognize you. That made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because she was right. I wasn't the same man who bought her flowers and drew her bathwater after long days. I wasn't the man who kissed her forehead before bed and believed her lies about needing space. No. That man died on the operating table. The one who came back had steel in his bones. And a plan. A few weeks later, the court issued a final judgment. Vanessa forfeited any rights to the house, the savings account, or any community property moving forward. I didn't ask for spousal support. I didn't need to. Taking back everything she tried to steal was revenge enough. The last time I saw her, she was leaving the courtroom alone, head down, phone pressed to her ear. No makeup, no audience, no exit plan. She passed me in the hallway and didn't look up. I didn't stop her. Outside, the sun was warm on the steps. My lawyer joined me, handed me the final paperwork. It's done, she said. Not yet, I replied. There's one more thing. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a rolled blueprint, unfurled it across the courthouse steps. It was a redesign of the house. Every room changed, every window moved, her yoga room gone. Our master suite rebuilt into a 2-room office and studio. I wasn't just reclaiming my home. I was rebuilding it. Without her, from the foundation up. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of the finished renovation, a mug of black coffee in one hand, the morning sun pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows that hadn't existed before. The house was the same, but entirely different. I kept the bones, the clean lines, the cedar beams, the staircase I had sanded with my own hands. But everything else? It was mine now. Truly mine. The kitchen island she once insisted be marble? Gone. Replaced with reclaimed oak roof. Warm. Honest. The bedroom where she once whispered hollow apologies had become my studio. Light poured through new skylights overhead, illuminating plans for a lakeside cabin I was designing for a client up in Maine. There were no traces of her left. Except one. I kept the beam above the old bed frame, the one where I had carved our initials. M. Jayoun. V. I didn't paint over it. I didn't sand it out. I carved a line through it. Not to erase the past. To mark its end. The mailbox still had our last name for now, but a new brass plate was on order. Just Thompson. No shared identity. No shared future. No one to siphon the life out of what I built. My phone buzzed. It was an email from Claire. The final disbursement from the frozen account had cleared. Vanessa's appeal was denied again. The judge's words were blunt. There is no evidence of remorse, only regret for being caught. I replied with 2 words. Close file. Then I turned off the phone and walked outside. The front yard was quiet. No trucks, no chaos, just the breeze and the soft hum of a future slowly unfolding. A little girl from next door, Emily, waved at me from her porch. Her mother had told me she wanted to be an architect, too. I'd promised to show her how to sketch floor plans once school was out. "Morning, Mr. Thompson," she called. "Morning, Em," I said, smiling. "You ready to design that secret treehouse we talked about?" She grinned, nodded, then ran back inside. As I walked the perimeter of the yard, I noticed something sticking out of the dirt near the flower bed. It was rusted, small. I brushed off the soil. The time capsule. I had buried it with Vanessa and our daughter years ago. Inside had been baby shoes, a few photos, and a note. Forever, no matter what. I didn't open it. I just walked it over to the trash bin and dropped it in without a word. Some things aren't worth revisiting. Some memories rot if you let them linger too long. That evening, I poured myself a glass of scotch and stood at the edge of the deck, watching the lights of Boston flicker in the distance. This was peace. Not the kind that comes from silence, but the kind that's earned after the storm, after the betrayal, after the dust finally settles and you find that what remains is enough, more than enough. Because what Vanessa never understood, what she never bothered to understand, is that when you steal from a man who builds, he'll just build again. Smarter, stronger, alone if he has to. And that's how I learned that living well is the best revenge. Did this story hit home? Tell me what you would have done in the comments. Mash that like, Sayode, subscribe to Revenge with Max for a new true revenge story every day, and share this with a friend who loves karma.